Okay, now that we've talked a little bit about timing theory and what we're trying to accomplish, we're going to go ahead now and do some pre-timing checks. In order for us to successfully time a machine, the machine must be mechanically healthy first. If the machine has some mechanical issues that need to be corrected, it won't do us any good to time the machine because of play and different things that make the machine unhealthy. So if that were the case, we'd want to take it to an authorized representative to have the machine adjusted so it would be ready to be timed. If the machine is healthy, then we can go ahead and time the machine. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to check to see if the machine is healthy and ready. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to make sure that we don't have any power cord in the back, that the machine is unplugged here at the back. Then we're going to make sure we have a new straight checked for straightness 134 needle system, size 100 needle. So I have a needle in here, but I'm going to take it out and show you how we would check it. So if I remove my needle from the machine, I can take my round shank needle and roll it on a flat piece of metal like my needle plate, which is already on my machine. And as I roll the shank, if my needle is bent, my point will waver. In this particular case, as I roll the needle, my point looks very fixed, and so I know my needle is straight. So I do want to make sure that my new straight 100 needle, size 100 needle, is straight so that I don't adjust the machine with a bent gauge, because my needle is my gauge. Next, after we check the needle to make sure it's straight, we're going to put it in correctly. So this is the front of the machine here. So from the front of the machine, my long groove goes down the front. I'm going to put it in the machine. I need to make sure it goes all the way to the top. The long groove needs to be straight out at me, and the eye straight at 6 o'clock. If I had a clock drawn on the needle plate, 6 o'clock is where my eye is. Then I also have a sight hole right here, right above my needle clamp screw. I'm going to look through the sight hole to make sure the needle is touching the top of the sight hole. Thus I know the needle's in all the way. Needle height is one of my timing adjustments, so I have to make sure my needle is in all the way. Then I'm going to go ahead and tighten my screw all the way. And now I'm ready to see if the next thing is okay, which is my needle centered in the needle plate? So as the needle goes down into the needle plate, basically I want to make sure that the needle is pretty much centered so that it's not ready to hit one side or the other. This is a very hard to adjust adjustment, so unless I've got needle penetration marks on my needle plate and my needle is rubbing on the edge, I probably wouldn't want to mess with that adjustment. That would be hard for a trained technician to adjust. If my needle is fairly centered, which it is in this case, then I'm once again ready to check the next thing. So now I'm going to raise my needle all the way up out of the needle plate. I'm going to go ahead and take the needle plate off so we can see a little better with a flat screwdriver. Some people like to use a short stubby screwdriver for this. It's really short. I just angle a longer screwdriver to get into it. It's a little faster for me. The needle plate is symmetrical, so you'll notice that it has a counter bore. You want to make sure that your flathead screw goes in there and looks like this. You're not going to put it on this way because now my screws will stick up and my quilt will get stuck on it. So the counter sinks go up and the screw goes in flat. Okay, now with the needle plate off, we need to check to see again if I have a bunch of play in the hook shaft so that my hook can move back and forth. I won't be able to accurately adjust my hook to my needle. And so that's one of the important adjustments. In fact, the most tricky adjustment is needle distance. So now we're going to check to see if we have and my hook shaft across the bottom of the machine. The hook shaft is right inside the hook like this. So if I take my hook off, I can see that I have a diameter here. Then I have an undercut for my fixing screws. My diameter continues a little smaller. And then I have the bearing diameter, which is what goes through the bearings inside the machine. So I have one size, two size, three size, and then this is the same as that size. So when I slide my hook on, the hook goes on this part. The screws are going to go here on this undercut. If I don't slide my hook on enough, and my hook shaft is not positioned properly, so we're not going to have you mess with the hook shaft. It should be fine already. But you'll notice that if I don't put it on all the way, when I tighten the screws, it will rock. It will make my hook crooked, so then when it runs, it will rock. You can see that rock. So I need to make sure it slides onto this other side, past the undercut, so that it won't rock. You'll notice that when I get to here, now it doesn't rock. If I'm out on enough, it does rock a lot. So when I tighten it, it won't be straight. So that's important that I have the hook on the right amount. Now when I get it over here and on this part, I have a little bit of adjustment so I can adjust it to my needle. So right now what we're doing is we're checking the whole shaft to see if the shaft and the hook move like this, in and out. To do that, I'm going to put my thumb on the center post, my index finger around behind underneath the hook. I'm going to push and pull. Rotate my hand wheel a little bit, push and pull. You can see there I have a teeny bit. I can barely hear it click. But as I keep turning, again my finger, push and pull, now it doesn't click. So if I had a bunch of play in that hook, then I would not be ready to time the machine. In this case I have in one spot in the full rotation of the hook a little bit of play, so that's fine. So I'm ready to time my machine. Next, we're going to check with the needle in the lowest position. I'm going to check the lower bearing here to see if I have any wear on the needle bar. In particular, I'm worried about it this way, front to back, because that's where I could have some skipping if I have play. Now this doesn't click at all. When I do this, I can flex my needle bar a little bit, but I don't hear any clicking, I don't feel any clicking. And so what that tells me is I don't have any wear on the needle bar bushing, which I wouldn't expect on this machine. It's pretty new. So that means that the needle bar and bushing are healthy, so I'm ready to time the machine. Next, I need to make sure of motion between the main shaft, which drives the needle bar and the take-up lever, and which is the lower end of my machine. So to do that, I'm going to hold on to my hook shaft, my hook really tight. I'm going to rock the hand wheel. If when I rock the hand wheel or turn the hand wheel, I have immediate transfer of motion to the hook. So in this case, as soon as I move the hand wheel, my hook moves. But let's say that I could do the hand wheel and I could do this with my hook, so it goes clunk clunk, then I would know my belt is too loose and that it needs to be adjusted before I time the machine. In this case, I have immediate transfer of motion. As soon as I move the hand wheel either direction, my hook moves the exact same amount. I don't have any slop or extra play or motion in my teeth on my belt. So that means that I'm healthy and I can time the machine precisely.